Episode 4. The Canon camera lineup is great, but in this episode, we're going to be talking about matching across cameras, workflow, as well as color accuracy. Previously on Canon cameras are great, but Canon give us the ability to buy different cameras at different price points with different features. And in recent times, they've allowed or enabled many of their cameras to be able to capture in C-Log, C-Log 2, or C-Log 3. Just because you own a C300 Mark III, a C500 Mark II, a 1DX Mark III, an R5, or a C70, it does not mean that if you're shooting with all of those cameras or a combination of those cameras, that you're going to end up with colors that actually match. I hate to say it, but it's true. For those of us who work or are lucky enough to work across different camera brands, the Canon blinders are coming off. Let me tell you why this has all been swimming around in my head for a bit. There are two companies that I am familiar with that absolutely understand the need for optimized and streamlined workflows. You've all heard me talk about workflow in the past. An efficient workflow helps us keep more money in our pockets. Workflow challenges or extra time in post-production eat away at our own income. One company that understands this is Red. A Red system is definitely not the budget option. What we get out of Red is beautiful. So how do we bridge quality, workflow, and overall cost? Believe it or not, with Red, it's actually pretty easy. You make that initial relatively larger investment, but every project you shoot on Red from that moment forward is actually saving you money. And it does that by saving you time in post-production. And that's true regardless of which Red camera you chose for your project. Everything from the OG Red 1 to their top-of-the-line Monstro VistaVision. How is this possible? IPP2. IPP2 is a unified color pipeline that allow you to pick and choose or mix and match between Red cameras without having to change your post-production workflow regardless of what the final output is. It allows for colors to match between the Dragon sensor, the helium sensor, and the Monstro sensor. Does that mean you won't see any difference between the different sensors? And the answer is no. You'll see some texture differences, but you won't see color variations. Red refers to those texture differences as film stock. IPP2 effectively takes all the guesswork out of your color pipeline and your delivery workflow. And IPP2 safeguards against inconsistencies across the entire Red arsenal of cameras. With Red IPP2, long gone are the days where you're trying to manually match different cameras. That, of course, is only true if all of the cameras used were Red cameras and if they were all capturing in Red Code RAW. And what that gives us is a gigantic time savings in post-production. That time savings becomes a cost benefit. You don't have to estimate how much time you're going to spend in post-production. You actually know before you get into the project. That also means that you can set up projects in Resolve as well as power grades based on your delivery and your clients that effectively takes out all of the guessing and all of the heavy lifting of post-production, making it for very fast, quick turnaround work that is consistent. And that speed is what makes the price of a Red worth it. And that applies to every camera in Red's lineup, right? From Komodo to Monstro, which then also means if I already own, say, a Monstro or a Helium or a Gemini, it doesn't matter. I don't need to buy a second body that matches that. I can choose to go with Komodo, which is much less expensive, and still get accurate, consistent results across the entire lineup, giving me the freedom to choose which tool I want to use without suffering a hit on quality or post-production speed. Allow me to make decisions based on my customer's budget without negatively affecting my crew or my day rate. And how this all ties back into Canon cameras is that we don't get that from them, right? For example, if I have an XC15 and a C500 Mark II, and I shoot both of them in Canon log, those colors aren't going to match. And the workflows look different for each of the cameras. And what's worse, you'll get close. The more time you spend on it, the closer you'll get. But it's never going to be quite right. But who would know that without actually having to go through that? Because the Canon marketing tell us that fill in your camera brand, can shoot in, fill in your favorite flavor of C-Log, but it somehow manages to forget to tell us that that same flavor of C-Log in two different bodies is going to look very differently on your same editing screen. I've called Canon support before pulling the trigger on buying another Canon camera, and I always get the exact same answer from them. I don't know. And every time, I've allowed the new camera excitement, the new gear excitement to get the better of me, and I end up pulling the trigger on it. I will say this. Over the years, Canon has improved in this area some. With the release of the C70 that has the same sensor as the C300 Mark III, they're showing signs of improvement. And while the C70 is a great companion to a C500 Mark II, they're two very different cameras with very different looking images. I realize that many of you are going to be like, dude, you're freaking crazy comparing Red to Canon because Canon's price point is very different than Red's. Fair enough. Let's talk about that second camera brand that did something very similar to Red, but decided to turn it up a few notches in tomorrow's episode. Until next time, I'm Carlos. Take care.